Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and today I'm going to share my thoughts on Headliner. Description for this game is short, thought-provoking adventure where you are a news editor and decide what stories get published. Set in a fictional city where most people are genetically modified, multiple unique endings let you share your story and see what the headliner before you did. So, just a little production background on this game. It was developed by Unbound Creations. Their most recent game is called Fulfillment, and I think it's gives you sort of an idea of managing like an Amazon warehouse, something like that. And then there's also Headliner Navi News, which is I think a sequel to this game. So those are some of their biggest ones. And then also this game was a part of the itch.io Racial Justice and Equality bundle that came out a little while back. So that's kind of where I got here. If you have that bundle, you might want to check this game out before listening to my review. But yeah, we've done a couple games from that bundle, some before the bundle ever existed and a few since, and we'll probably keep going back to that. I think that I kind of like that as for episodes like these of being able to do smaller one-offs with stuff from that bundle. So I don't know. We'll kind of see how that goes. If you have recommendations for that from the bundle, I'd love to hear them. That'd be pretty helpful for me, just to choose the best stuff and know what people are enjoying and stuff. And also, I did make a blog post on our website with just quick descriptions of the games we've played so far and links to their episodes. I also made a Twitter post that has the same basic information. So I do hope to kind of continue to build on that as time goes, just so if anyone looks for this in the future, they could find it. So enough about that, though. We'll get into the recap of the game. And because the way the game is set up, the recap will be a little different than a beat-by-beat kind of thing, as there is some story, but since it is fairly choice-based, I would say, everyone's stories could be sort of different. So I guess first I'll start off with just talking about how the game works. So the game has a pretty, similar cycle, I guess I would say. So each day you go into your office, your assistant or maybe supervisor, I forget, they give you 5-ish articles to approve or deny. And so you've got a stamp that's green, you've got a stamp that's red. You can get them, and if you just glance at them, you can see the headlines on them, but then if you lift it up, you'll be able to see the short paragraph of the article. And you can choose to approve or deny. After you do that, you go home and you walk on the streets to your house, and you see how the news is received. So you'll be walking down the street, you'll hear people talking and say, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this thing, or I'm so angry about this thing, or the streets that you walk are affected by the news that you publish, right? They respond to it. So you get you get to see the impact of your news kind of firsthand every day when you walk home. Then, once you walk home, you end up having a conversation with your family. So you have a spouse, and then you have a daughter who's, I think, like a senior in high school, roughly that age, getting ready to go to college. And so then you have a conversation about each of your own days. You also talk about the news, and you can kind of navigate that. And you get into interesting conversations there because you could be in a spot where what your personal beliefs or what your family's beliefs or what's being published could be different or go against each other or any of that stuff. So you've kind of got a variety of ways that this can look. And that's the gist of the game. You end up, I think, playing about a week, maybe 8 days, and that wraps it up. So it'll be like Sunday, 8 days till the festival. Monday, 7 days until the festival, and so on. And you play up until the day after the festival. That's sort of how this is set up. That's your kind of time block increment. And so that's the gist of the game. Now I'll talk a little bit more about the content within the game itself. So each day you have slightly different instructions. At first it is, here's 5 articles, you can publish all of them or publish as little as you'd like. Either way is fine. Then as the days go on, you do get little variations. So for instance, there are some articles that end up being an either or position where you can either, there's 2 articles, they're stapled together, one you approve, the other you automatically deny. And so that would be something that might be like really pro a stance or really con a stance. You get to choose one or the other for your newspaper. You also can see your editor, who you speak to, will encourage you to choose a stance. So either you should be really pro a thing or anti a thing to kind of get people reading your paper. It also says at the beginning that you are up for a big promotion, and depending on how things go, maybe you could get us more readers, that sort of thing. And so they're sort of encouraging you to make either, I don't know, controversial or things that get clicks, I guess, essentially. Things that get people to read the paper. That's kind of what they want you to do. And you've got a variety of issues that do show up. The big things are refugees. So a nearby country has a war that's going on with it, and there are refugees who want to come. And so you can go with a pro-refugee stance, like we should have refugees here, we should take care of them, they're people too. You'd hope that they would take care of us if roles were reversed. So you can go that avenue, or you can go the I hate refugees, don't let them come here route. You also, so it mentioned up top that a large portion of the society is genetically modified. I think this would be kind of like the movie Gattaca, is the kind of the vibe I took from it. So most people have modifications in their body that make them better. So I think it would be more like Gattaca rather than like BioShock, where people are like crazy or something like that due to taking plasmids. Instead, it seems like society would be a lot like ours, except a lot of people have these modifications that are supposed to like make you healthier or heal quicker or like things like that. And you have opportunities to be pretty pro modifications, so everyone should get modifications. Modifications should be had by all. The government should subsidize them. They're really important. Or you can stand up for the purist. So the purist are the people who don't have modifications, just regular people like you or I. And so there is some of a cultural attitude of purists are bad, they're bad for our society attitude. And you can choose to be like, no, purists should have the same rights as people who have modifications. Even though more of us have modifications, we should be okay with them. And then last thing that you can really hit up that's big is talk about government funding and whether it should be directed towards education or directed towards medicine. And the education or medicine one becomes, I guess all of these actually become pretty relevant, but because of your different family situations. So, in my playthrough, how it went was my wife worked as a pharmacist, and she also was having some sickness. It seems that what had happened is her body is rejecting her modification. So it's like modification, rejection, sickness. I guess she'd gotten it as an adult or sometime after being born. And sometimes your body doesn't like the modifications. And so it will, you can get sicknesses from it. So she was getting like headaches, things like that. So on one avenue for her, there was the question of, well, should I be really pro government subsidizing medication so that it could take care of her? Also, should I write things so my news publication does well so that we have good insurance so that it could take care of her? So you have those. On the opposite end, your daughter wants to go to a really prestigious school. That's going to cost a lot of money. And so you could say, okay, do I want to be pro-education so my daughter can get this? Or would I want to be pro-medicine so my wife can get this help? Another thing that comes up as your wife is going through her medical issues is that when I did mine, I was pro refugees, so I let them come. And so then there were parts where she was nervous about losing her job. I've been getting sick a lot. My boss might want to replace me with someone else who could cost less, or they aren't as sick, or he feels bad for them, like those kinds of things. And so you did have a couple tensions kind of going throughout. Also, you could choose to say whether you had your modification afterwards or at birth. I said afterwards, so the way my family was set up is my wife and I both had modifications after being born, but our daughter was born with modifications. So it seems like maybe that's sort of the state of the society, is maybe some of the older people got mods later, but more of the children are born with them, sort of thing. So that's sort of how the game plays out. So then for me, my choices, I let the refugees come in. This fits with my personal views of things. I think that society is good to help out people in those situations. If your country is so dangerous you can't live there anymore, it seems like the world should probably take care of you. That'd be a good thing. I used to intern in college at a refugee resettlement place. I think this is important. So I went with what I believe for that one. And if you care more about refugees, I'd listen to Bury Me, My Love. I did an episode on that talks about refugee stuff. It's pretty good. And I recommend playing that game. And if you care more about refugees, I've got some books that you could read also that I could send your way. But good stuff. So anyway, I did refugees. What I did was I ended up going with a positive view of the purist. So you could either be anti-purist or pro-purist. I went pro because I kind of thought, like, I think they wanted you to make it feel like it would be like how people are anti-vax now. But I didn't really feel that way with it. Like, I don't think not taking vaccines is a bad call. But I think in this world, it's like, okay, these modifications, we don't, your wife is experiencing them not be good even. But we don't know that they're automatically always good, or that being regular is officially bad, kind of thing. So I went the route of, everyone should be treated equally. You shouldn't treat someone lesser because they're a purist, kind of thing. Or a person who doesn't have mods. So I went that route, and then I also went the pro-medicine route. And I think that one, I don't know. I think education and medicine being subsidized are probably a good thing. But I went the pro-medicine one, I think, leaning in the game that my wife was having medical issues. My insurance got dinged while I was playing because I wasn't selling enough newspapers. I think that influenced that one. And as you might expect, based on the things that I just said, my newspaper wasn't that popular. In the beginning, I actually tried to, I think on my first day, I did articles on both ends of things. That the newspaper should be informative, not opinionated, which is a view I 100% hold as a person. News should be news, not opinion. If you want opinions, there's a lot of places to get that. But that information is really important, that knowledge is important, kind of thing. So I started out with that route of trying to give both sides of argument. So here would be what would be good about this thing. Here's maybe what wouldn't be. I tried to publish those, and the next day my editor was like, yeah, people are confused. They don't really know what we think, and they don't like that. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll choose a position. So that kind of moved me towards the ones that would probably more be like what I would think for real. So I started doing those, which were not the popular opinions with the people. As things go on, they let refugees in, I think, at least in part based on my paper. And so when you're walking around, there's actually a bunch of people walking down the street who are just refugees who are just kind of around. And you can engage with some people, sort of, but you don't really engage with a lot. Another thing that happened as a result of my pay-per-view, or my paper's views that I put out, was there's a bit of rioting. I think that some modification people became more anti-purist, and I think some purists became more anti-modification. And as said at the beginning, the modification group is most people. So you had this kind of going on. There were different times where you'd walk down the street and you'd see things. So there was like a grocery store, and someone wrote like "Purist scum work here," or something like that. I think on our newspaper place outside of our door at our building, someone wrote "propaganda," or like, stuff like that. So there's a lot of sort of turmoil kind of going on as it went, and you could eavesdrop on some conversations as you went. As time went, there ended up being like a security force. There were like little robot drones like going around kind of watching things, but then there were also a couple of times where there were like security checkpoints where it was like a group of SWAT officers or something were across the way, and you couldn't pass until you had your identity like looked at, and then you could go. So I would say all in all, my situation day by day, I would say didn't work out great in the sense of selling papers, and maybe in things working. I'm not sure. Some things were a little more difficult, I would say for sure. I'm thinking, I don't think the game wanted me to do this, but I think that the newspaper editors, I think, would want some harsh, like, nationalism things, which, again, I don't think that's what the creators would want or anything, but I think that to sell papers, if you were really trying to, it seems like you could be, like, just pro-majority all the time, like, pro-mods, pro our country, not refugees, that sort of thing. That, I imagine that would probably get it. It seems like it would be akin to now, where like hate clicks are what get things, and that, like articles, newspaper places will put out 2 articles on the same thing, and one will be with a headline from one side, and one will be the headline about the other side, and just like clickbaiting your way there. It seems like that's what they would want, is you to just clickbait it to death and like go that way. Again, your newspaper editor is not the game itself to get you there, which I didn't do. I was like, I'm gonna play this how I want to. So my ending, the headlines are at the end. It says, a celebrity died, homes were burned, daughter went to prison, wife lost her job, I didn't get the promotion. So all in all, I would say my ending wasn't great. So I'll run down what these mean. So a celebrity died. There is a celebrity who was like a big singer who was coming to perform at the festival, and it comes out that she's a purist. She stands up for purist rights. It's a good thing. Throughout the week, I encouraged that. I was like, it's good that she's, doing this. She's using her platform, whatever. I encouraged it. Unfortunately, at the festival, someone shot and killed her during the performance, so that was insane. And it's crazy watching. Like, they're not like stickmen, but it's not that detailed. It's pretty minor in there. But I was, I had to walk through the festival to go home, and I was there, and then bam, and I was just like, oh my god, like that made me question a lot of how I use my newspaper. Homes were burned, so after that there was some rioting. It was crazy. The police showed up. It was nuts. Daughter went to prison. I don't think that this is quite the right word. It's the daughter went to jail, and she went to jail because she got caught spray painting some pro-purist graffiti that she was, saying that purists should have rights, and she got arrested for that. So, not a real crime. I mean, it is a real crime, but not a, it's not like you're going to jail for a year or something like that. Instead, it could hurt your college. You might get some sort of offense that might not be good for college, but, not the hugest thing. So I think that word is a little less good. Wife did lose her job. She ended up being sick. We couldn't afford her medication at first. Then we had to get like cheaper meds. And because she was missing work so much because she was sick, her boss let her go and ended up hiring one of the refugees. So that was a bummer for the wife, but I think probably good that she's not working and resting. And then I didn't get the promotion. The newspaper, of course, didn't love the angles I went with. It wasn't inflammatory enough, so they said, well, maybe next year you'll get it. So all in all, I don't think I did great. I don't think the thing I would say most bad about in any of that is the celebrity dying. Of course, like maybe I should have encouraged them not to come to the festival, and maybe they'd be alive. But the other stuff, I kind of feel like I went with the values that I think I should have, and everything has consequences, kind of thing. So I don't know. I feel all right about that. And that's the game. That's my experience with it. From here, I'll move into a couple general thoughts on the game. First thing is, this felt a lot like the book 1984 by George Orwell. In that book, the main character, I think his name is Winston Smith. I'm like 99% sure that's the case. And he works at the Ministry of History. And what his job is to do is to edit the newspapers to make sure that they're old newspapers, to make sure that they're up to date with current beliefs. Because the world in 1984 is there's 3 great superpowers, and they're always at war with one another, always 2 versus 1. But as time goes on, sometimes the pairings change. And it's, oh, well, we're always at war with blank. Or we've always been at war with blank. And so it sort of changes like that. But so Winston Smith's job when you get into 1984 is to make sure the newspapers reflect what they should and say, oh, it was our enemies, these people, and stuff like that. Or taking people out who've been disappeared, taking them out of the newspaper when they've been mentioned so that people are like, oh, I don't know who that is. So kind of wild as a thing. But it felt a little bit like that, just in that you're, I don't know, dealing with print and dealing with the facts that are being put out for people, right? Also in this game, you actually have a character named Winston Smith that you see. So they obviously thought about 1984 too. One of the people who writes an article for you. I just happened to notice it, but it was like written by Winston Smith, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Also in this, when you choose your family, when your family is made, you get to choose your name, and whether you're male or female, your spouse, whether they're male or female, and their name, and then your daughter is always your daughter and her name. So for this, I went, I embraced this view. So I made my character's name George for George Orwell. And then I chose, I would say less good names for my family, but I figured it didn't really matter, so I did it anyway. So I named my wife Fahrenheit for Fahrenheit 451. The book about burning books. That's pretty good. And then I named my daughter Huxley for Aldous Huxley for Brave New World. So that was kind of my I just embraced that. If you haven't read those books, highly recommend it. Also, if you read them in high school and they're just left there, I'd say read them again. They're pretty good. And have some noteworthy stuff to them that is relevant to the world today, for sure. So I'd recommend those. I thought that was cool, though. I like that sort of vibe. And then also, I'm super stoked to play the second game. I'm definitely going to do that, I think, pretty soon after this. I think that the idea of, the journalism influencing things was pretty fun. I imagine that my concerns about having to make crazy inflammatory news is what you have to do is probably still true in the second one, but I would like if I could do stuff that aligns with my view or is more nuanced or more balanced. Any of those would be nice. I'm curious, too, if this will be kind of like Emily is Away to Emily is Way 2. Where they're not, it's not a traditional sequel, I would say, but, same idea, but maybe a boosted up version. Like, I thought that the jump from Emily is Away 1 to Emily is Away 2 was an awesome jump, and I really, really liked it. And I kind of wonder if this will have a similar thing. If you just had a boosted up version of this game, I think I'd really like it. I really like this one. I thought this was super cool. and so to get to have a bigger version with maybe, I don't know, more choices, stuff like that, I'd be pretty down with that. So I'm pretty eager to check that out, and I don't know. Yeah, all in all, cool game. Even as you've heard me summarize all of my experience in this, I'd go play it yourself. I think that you could still get a lot out of it on your own end, and could probably end up getting pretty different endings than I did. I was scrolling through different types of endings you could have, and it seems like there's a lot. Like, I saw that there's one apparently where you die in it, or other ones where other people die, maybe in your family, or, or you can have good endings, you get the promotion, your daughter goes to the college she wants, that stuff. So it seems like there's quite a lot of options of how this could go. So, yeah, definitely check it out. I'd love to hear how yours ended if you go play it. But yeah, I guess that is the episode. If you have any thoughts on this game, please send them in. I'd love to talk about it. You can get in contact with us a couple ways. Our Twitter is @StoryEverPod. I'm pretty active on there. Love to interact. Our website's TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. There you can find our backlog of episodes, including ones on several games from the itch.io bundle. So yeah, check that for sure. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can do that at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. And there we do just kind of topical episodes on different stuff. We talked about fantasy football recently, so we went a little bit outside of gaming. We've ranked the Life is Strange episodes, talked about our favorite video game franchises, so, a variety of kind of stuff like that. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, that will get you access to all of those. So, pretty low-key there. If you'd like to review the podcast to just help get the word out there, we'd super appreciate that too. You could do that on Podchaser or on iTunes. That would be super cool. We'd really appreciate that. We'd, like to read those on the air when we get them and stuff. So that'd be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. And yeah, I guess that's the episode, and see you next time.